Kia ora
Kia ora
tātou.
tātou. Good morning, everyone.
I've got a
Got a
lovely
lovely
echo.
echo.
And
And welcome to the City Delivery Committee meeting
of the
of the
4th
4th
of
of November 2025.
I'll just
I'll
wait
just
till
wait till
our
our technicians
sort
sort
this one out.
out.
In terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way to the nearest emergency exit. The assembly point is down on Devonport Road. This meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. Elected members, please remember to speak clearly into your microphones and please turn off your mobile phones or put them on silent. I will do the opening karakia. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tauau, te mori tū, te mori ora ki te katoa. Humi e, hui e, tai ki e. We have an apology from Councillor Baker and Tangata Whenua representative Jackie Rolleston-Steed. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the apologies? Thank you, Councillor Rolleston. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour?
Oh, she's online. There we go.
Welcome, Tangata Whenua representative Jackie Rolleston-Steed.
So we just make that
Morena, sorry for the delay.
That's fine. We will just take you out of the apology if our mover and seconder are comfortable with that. Thank you. We don't have anybody for the public forum, but we do have our CCOs presenting today at 1 o'clock. There are no late items and no confidential business is to be transferred to the open section for this meeting. We are recognising a change in the order of business. We had a supplementary agenda that was uploaded. We're going to cover those items first. So the order of business will be status updates on actions, Q1 financial monitoring, first quarter capital program, major projects update, annual resident survey, which is now part of the original agenda, city centre development incentive fund, variable speed limit update and speed limit progress, Granada Street pedestrian crossing options, and local government funding agency annual report and AGM shareholder voting. And then we will have the annual report updates from the council-controlled organisations. So if we look for the minutes of the City Delivery Committee meeting from the 2nd of September, which is page... It's on the original agenda. So page 10 of the original agenda. So do we have any changes needed from the minutes of the meeting of the 2nd of September? Any corrections? I take that there are not. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes, please? I've got a mover. Thank you, Councillor Schuler. A seconder, Councillor Rolleston. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Can I call for any conflict of interest for today's meeting? There being no conflicts, thank you. So we go to the first item, which is 9.6, page 4 of the supplementary agenda. And Alistair McNeil will be speaking to the report. I did see he...
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Morning. That's all right.
I've seen you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. We'll take the paper as read. Any questions?
A couple from me, if I may. We've got that the waterfront, and I haven't seen what, page 8, that the waterfront crossing is closed. It's moved departments, but it will move sectors, but I don't think we should say it's closed, is it? Councillor Taylor, are you comfortable it's recorded as closed? Oh, sorry.
No, we're actually still working on it. We're still in the process of finalising the budget for the rail crossings.
Okay, so we'll update that, thank
I've
you.
noted that.
Great.
Yep.
I do note that there's a closed item on the grouping of consultants, that same page. I couldn't find the report that apparently we've received. Could I just get another copy, please? Thank you. Catherine? We've also got closed so we've got an item that's going to be closed when a report is presented to the 16th of December meeting. So I think it needs to stay open until we actually present that report. So that's the top of page 10. On the safety, so second one on page 10, can we just, it says Deborah, who was the resident who presented this, was to receive the update. Has that been received? I don't.
We'll update the action report offline and come back to you.
Thank you, and just if we can have a copy, that would
We
be
will.
great, please. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions on the action schedule? Okay, thank you very much. We have a recommendation to receive the report status update on actions from the prior City Delivery Committee meetings. I'm happy to move that. I've got a second from Councillor Kurak. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. Quarter one financial monitoring, be interesting. I can't get the names wrong because you're all here. So we're welcoming Catherine Sharpton, Tracy Hughes, Cherie Coville and Susan Braid.
The dream team.
Around this table, it's very nice to have you all here. We nearly get even. Well, look, we're all ladies at this end and all ladies at that end. Oh, what, are you not?
Okay, so I'm very pleased to present the first quarter financial performance monitoring report for the 25-26 financial year. This first quarterly report has adopted a different reporting framework to that used last year. So I'm just going to outline the purpose of these changes, which were requested by Council, are for better clarity for elected members in the community on our revenue and expenditure for the year and over time, and standardising the way this information is presented with some more detail, standardised detail. So Tracy will take you through, a lot of this is in attachment 1, which is the sort of revamp of the Statement of Comprehensive Revenue and Expenditure, with a second page which has a lot more detail. The second purpose is to improve elected members' ability to track performance of the organisation over the year as events occur and decisions are made by Council. To this end, we are proposing that, in the way we present it, that City Delivery Committee consider changes from the annual plan that may affect budgets, and if they agree, recommend to Council as an approved or revised budget for the year, against which we will then record and report subsequent quarterly reports. And so these changes to the approved budget may occur in either CapEx or OpEx. So each quarter you'll expect staff will include a summary of matters that are proposed to be included in or could be included in approved budget. And they'll include things like carry forwards, or if a decision is made to undertake a new capital project that wasn't in budget, or bring it forward, etc. We have some of those proposed recommendations for this quarterly report, and Tracy will present the ones related to OpEx, and Susan will present those related to CapEx. Because it is quite a lot of different format, we're happy to take questions today, but we're also happy to catch up afterwards if people are kind of trying to understand the detail and how it's presented. We have done our very best to represent these changes, and particularly worked with Deputy Mayor Skula. But the late tabling of items does show that it's still a work in progress, and we'll sort of get more streamlined on it as we go. But I'll hand over to Tracy to kind of outline, unless there's any questions, outline the operational aspects of the report.
Thanks, Catherine.
Good morning. Not quite sure how you might want to run this. It might be best if we do operating stuff and then some questions on that before we move on to capital. Not sure. Yeah. Okay. Firstly, just to address the tabled item that looks like that. There are only a couple of changes, well actually one, which is on the back of the first page, which splits out capitalised salaries from salaries and wages as an item of interest, I suppose, which can make things look a bit muddy if it's all put together. The other item on page 2 is just a reminder relating to the balanced budget and why our operating revenues don't cover our operating costs. The LGFA measure includes capital subsidies, just as a reminder. Oh, my apologies. And the bottom of the first page, the front page, page 1, does include those two separate ways of looking at operating surpluses. So our operating position, the detail is actually in attachment 1, comprised of the P&L and a breakdown of employee costs and other operating costs, with a breakdown of significant variances. The blue columns give some context over time. The purple columns are the first quarter year to date against the annual plan as approved by you in June. The column on the far right for approved budget reflects what we're asking you to approve today in recommendation C, this being recategorisations and carry forwards. There is a net increase to operating budgets with carried forward expenditure and funding from 2024-25 of $3 million. The forecast column shows minimal change this early in the year, apart from in the salaries forecast, which I'll talk about a little bit more shortly. Overall, revenues are behind budget, 17.5 million in total. That's 4.7 million in operating revenues, which largely reflects a delay in revenue from central government. We're expecting that to come through in October. 12.8 million in capital revenues, being vested assets and, again, delays in revenues from central government, in this respect NZTA, partly related to the weather and our renewals program, and partly related to delivery of PEI under budget. So because we're delivering it under budget, the revenues are under budget as well. Early in the financial year, many variances have occurred due to a mismatch of timing. some negative variances have offsetting positive variance. For example, there's close on $1 million worth of expenditure relating to Egret Avenue emergency works. There is offsetting revenue to go with that. Two items of note. One is relating to consultants. On the back page, second page if you like, of this, you'll see we have 2 lines for consultants. They net off to a net positive variance of about $200,000. However, once we transfer budget relating to the art gallery from capital, that's a $2.8 million transfer, that variance will obviously increase. So that's a reflection of 2 things. One is just where projects are at in terms of their requirement for consultants, but the other is also quite a strong organisational focus on how we use consultants. Back to employee costs, you'll see that they're reflecting $920,000 over budget. This includes $1.2 million of redundancy and reset costs and $902,000 under annual plan capitalised salaries budget. The redundancy costs at $1.2 million are after consideration of the accrual. $1.9 million has been paid out this financial year. Total expenditure is $7 million under annual plan year to date. Attachment 4 takes us back to the discussion on carry forwards.
Can we just get the page for everyone, please?
Sorry, I don't have that.
Sorry, it's on 34, page 34. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. So this table charts the movement from the annual plan to what we are requesting as approved budget. The first column, column D, in terms of changes, is a reallocation, a category reallocation. And these are related to corrections in some sense of firstly moving $3 million that we had counted as capitalised salary for the digital services activity and moving that credit against consultants and contractors. This better reflects the way we have to account for digital development. And also a little bit more than $400,000, which has been taken out of establishment costs, our FTE, and put into consultancy relating to the development of the art gallery, of the museum. There are some smaller items in there as well. Columns E and F result from changes to project timing, so some of those come from, are related to what Susan will talk about in terms of the capital program, and there are some small operating projects as well which have moved over time. The carry forwards that are being requested from 2024-25, along with their funding, are listed at the bottom of that table. The grants relating to community housing in Papakainga, the carry forwards, my understanding is that there is a resolution of council going back a couple of years now that require carrying forward those budgets. I can confirm that subsequently if you wish, but that is certainly my understanding. The point 7 was actually agreed through deliberations as well. Otherwise, operating carry forwards aren't something we willy-nilly add into the mix. It has to be something quite specific that for a specific reason wasn't able to be achieved within the time period of the budget. I'm happy to take questions.
Me Mahe.
Thank you. Firstly, just thank you very much for the new sheet, and particularly around the personnel expenses and the reconciliation of that deficit. I think these are the sort of things that we just want to see every time we talk about these things, so we can actually see the full picture. So thank you very much for that. A couple of questions there. One, I'll start with the art gallery, and you talked about the consultants, that those would go back into the into that. So we obviously know about that now. So when would that happen? Because I guess we don't want to get to the end of the year and go, oh yes, but we had the consultants that we haven't put in.
Yes, it should have happened at the same time as the actuals were transferred. It was overlooked. So it should have been included on that list of changes in attachment 4, but it will come up next time in the new list.
Yeah, that's fine. And obviously we had late changes to the operating lease, and so I just noticed there's $10 million in these accounts here, which is the operating lease for the forecast, with no changes made. So is that just because of when this report was done? Because again, we just would like to see those changes done now rather than wait to the end of the year.
Yes, we can do that for Q2. So there's a little bit of weighing up that you might want to do in your head about transparency. So in my mind, and I think you've talked about it as well, Mr. Mayor, representing it as an operating lease is probably more understandable to most people. And we could keep displaying it that way if that's helpful, but understanding that when we come to do the year-end annual reporting, that will change. Otherwise, I am happy to reflect it the way we do in the annual report.
Yeah, I think we should change it, because otherwise you're doing it one way and then you've got to change. I think the key is trying to explain it, and so that you can see every time there's a little note there that just explains that, while there's a decrease in your operating lease, you've got an increase in that depreciation and interest. So, we sort of net those off. I think what we're really after is just that consistency going forward. So every time we see something, it's the same, and we can sort of reconcile those parts. Just one more question at this stage. And again, it's a, let me just find it. So we've got this graph on page 17, which is the Q1 net debt. And so that reconciles the net debt. So in that, we go up by 269,000, million, from 1.312 to 1.571. Then we have paragraph 29 below that, saying we've got an approved debt drawdown of 485 million. So where I'm confused is, in the graph above, we're talking 200 and sorry, I just don't have that exact number. I think it's 269. And then we go to the graph below, and we look up, and then we look down below, and we're saying we're drawing down 485. So it's really just, we need that reconciled back to the number, because they don't equate. We've got 220 odd million that's unexplained, that we're drawing the debt down, but the debt's not going up. So, yep.
Cherie was going to cover that treasury stuff
Okay.
shortly.
Cool. Yeah, we can wait for that one then. Yeah, I'll leave my questions for there at the moment.
I've got a number of questions, and so I think acknowledge the finance team and Catherine, the intention that we're trying to get more standardised reports. We did comment that at the town hall meeting at the Historic Village this week with our people, that there were a lot of finance questions, and I think our people are wanting to get more transparency, as we are, and I think the more we can standardise the way we see the numbers, I think that will really help us and the people of Tauranga. So I acknowledge the work you're trying to do with that, and I think we're all trying to get in the right direction. And I think that's, as the Mayor suggested, that if we're going to put it in in the annual report in a certain way, let's start doing that now. Just on digital and the change, I'm probably not as keen to say let's make changes now when some of them might be timing, and we're going to do a proper forecast. So we're going to do a proper forecast at 6 months. Is that right? We do another round of this.
We ask people to forecast continually.
Yes.
Historically, people are loath to signal that they can give up budget, so that's why you don't tend to see much movement in forecast. But it is something we ask people to do continually. There will be minor adjustments as we go through.
Okay. But in terms of any changes, that if we didn't approve the changes now, but they were just rolled into what we do in 6 months, that just means we've got one lot of changes rather than two. Okay. So just on digital though, and your comment, Tracy, that the adjustment is because of the way we have to deal with digital. We actually came in when we were still looking at the 23-24 accounts, and this was an issue. They were an issue when we did the 24-25 accounts, and now we've got an issue when we're doing the 25-26 forecast. The rule actually changed, I think, 3 years ago. I just don't understand why our systems don't automatically put it in the right place, so we don't have this adjusting. Can you help me out, please?
Sure. This is a slightly different issue. So the capitalised, in order to reflect staff time that is being spent on digital development, back in the day that was always capitalised salary. It's continued to be budgeted that way, I think, for, dare I say it, transparency. However, that is technically incorrect, which is why we are asking to make that adjustment now, that amendment now. Now that we have got the expenditure in the correct place, we actually need to deal with that staff time element as well.
We don't want technically incorrect, and the rule changed 3, 4, 5 years ago. Can we please make sure that we're technically getting it correct in your accounting system in the first place? So just a request, please. Thank you.
Agreed.
Just a question from me on the extra information we've got, which did break down personnel expenses. Just looking at the salaries and wages line, and this doesn't include, there's no complication in that of capitalised salaries. Now, I don't know, we've got it as an extra handout, so I'm not sure where, if people are watching, where is this on our papers? Anyone got a page number for me? Is it quarter one with variances? Yeah, so it's page 22. So the salaries and wages have gone up from 133 million to 137 million, which is about a 4% increase. We lost 106 roles, which Marty shared with at the town hall meeting this week, which is an 8% decrease on about 1,300 roles. CPI of about, might put it up 3%. So if we've gone up 3%, down 8%, I would expect that line to be decreasing, but we've gone up 4%. So how do we explain what's happened there, please?
I'm happy to do a full reconciliation for you after this meeting.
Yes, please. Can we action that as a, that's great. That would be lovely. Thank you. And I did have a number of other questions which I think are quite detailed, and I think it's more important that we sit down and talk through those, making sure that I'm understanding and trying to get more transparent. But just also, can I please request that the annual plan 25-26 is the approved annual plan for 25-26. We call it that all the time, not ANP. I always wonder what that is. And it's not a budget, it is the approved plan, and that's the number we always want to be able to see in at least one of the columns. So that's just a request from me, please. Any other questions of staff? Yes, Councillor Morris. Oh, Mahe probably.
Oh,
he forgets he has to turn his off this meeting.
I hate it when it does that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the consultants, the two lines on the handout here under other operating expenses. There's been an $18 million drop in consultants relative to last year and the pattern in previous years. I've tried to reconcile it with the LTP. What's driven that reduction in consultants? Is it a slower capital delivery? Is it that a lot of the work has been up front for the delivery that's being done right now? Or is it other decisions that have sort of been made around this table? Don't want to claim credit for something that is somebody else's work.
Certainly all of those things you say. However, also the columns in blue are actuals, and you'll recall when we came to you in July looking at that very early end of year position, that there was going to be a lot of write-backs from the capital expenditure. That's where most of it ends up, because that's what most of it is. So, yes, a combination of those things and also the, as I mentioned earlier, the organisational focus. So when we did the reset, that was one area that was looked at quite closely, and we are still looking at it quite closely.
Absolutely.
Just going back to personnel expenses and the impact of city ops. So looking back in LTP and former annual reports, that'll be under like not contractors but contracts, because their salaries will be part of that. So how do we paint that picture so that it's clear for the public the impact of bringing that activity in-house and the commensurate reduction one would hope in terms of operational contracts elsewhere?
Just off the top of my head, looking at what I've got in front of me, you would expect to see reductions in R&M budgets, and you can see that particularly in that Spaces and Places area where a lot of that work is being done.
It helps if my roll is straight. Yeah, I've got you.
Mayor Mahay.
I just had a question, and it really around resolution B and C. We've sort of spoken around timing. You probably touched on it with one of the deputy mayor's questions. But as staff, are you comfortable if we were to remove those on the basis that potentially these are timing differences rather than like until later in the year when we have a bit better idea as to whether those timing differences are going to be permanent?
I think for OPEX, it's fine. I think for capital, and Susan can take you through the capital section, project managers are working to budget, so it's always comfortable for individual projects to be clear that they have the carry forward budget to work to. So if we could maybe, Susan could perhaps talk through her section, and you can have a look at what are the capital changes and whether you would approve those. The second question, though, is, I guess, related to that. If you've added additional work through the carry forwards, are you going to spend the whole of the capital budget? And that also comes through in reports today about our projected overall budget. So would we have more debt at the end? Probably not. And we'll go into more detail on that on the workshop on Thursday. But the actual carry forward budgets of projects is very helpful for staff to work to, knowing they've got an approved budget.
Morning. So on the CapEx side, the 2026 annual plan was adopted at a total of 502 million, and that was based on a forecast spend of 461 million last financial year at the time of that adoption. So as you'll be aware from your annual report numbers, we actually landed at $415 million CapEx spend last financial year. So in this report today, there are a number of those year-end wash-up adjustments, including carry forwards, consequential deferrals for those multi-year projects that are recommended for council approval. If agreed, that would result in a new approved CapEx budget this financial year of $491 million. The details of those budget adjustments can be found in the attachments. There, you can see them by adjustment type that we're proposing, noting that there are a couple of true savings that I've called out there. So you'll see that in the reduction of budget column in those attachments. So being Cameron Road Stage 1, there was $900,000 worth of closeout budgets identified as no longer required, so we're wanting to offer them up as true savings. And of course the $1 million that you all agreed through the deliberations process for Papamoa Shared Pathway, $1 million reduction to offset, $1 million reduction for the Public Art Fund to offset the Papamoa Shared Pathway being able to progress to the same value. So you'll see the new project budget offset by a reduction in budget for those two. Also just calling out, we have added an extra page in that capital reporting on contingencies. So the adopted annual plan budget of 502 mil included $48 million worth of identifiable contingency allowances. Through these proposed budget adjustments, that revised contingency budget would reduce to $34 million, or essentially 7% of the total program for the year. The key changes within that are largely related to deferral of projects, so PEI Phase 3, Te Aka Road Drive, Fisherman's Wharf and Taureka West contingencies. There is also a suggested reallocation of some of those Taureka West contingencies to form part of the implementation budgets for that program. Project managers, they're currently forecasting to spend approximately $17 million of that contingency budget. Again, primarily Taureka West, Te Manuataki projects to the value of about $2 million, and bus facility improvements at Tauranga Crossing, again $2 million. Yeah, happy to take any questions.
Just in terms of the adjustments, and I'm sort of still on the fence as to whether we change them now or wait till 6 months. We have a spreadsheet that we are finding really useful from you that does list every project in the capital, the 502,499. We will be able to get an update of that with that column and these changes so that we're still being able to put that all together? Is that okay to get from you as a spreadsheet?
Yes, so that is in one of the attachments to this report.
But it's
does
not a spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can provide you with the spreadsheet, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Crowther, did you have a question? Okay. Any other questions on capital? Okay, so we do Treasury. Oh, sorry, Councillor Crowther.
Just looking at the net debt forecast, where it's like, I'm just trying to understand for the capital expenditure. Like you'd produced a document previously which showed there was an expected where is it? $39 million reduction in capex for FY26, but it doesn't seem to be on this handout today, which is on page whatever it is. I don't know what page it is in the meeting, but entitled Q1 2026 net debt year to date, etc. So I'm just trying to understand: is this excluding the forecast $39 million lower debt, or is that $39 million now not the reforecast debt? CapEx, not debt, CapEx, to produce those debt figures.
Can I just might just invite Sheree over to a mic and she'll just take you through that whole waterfall graph so you can see all the changes that are in there and where that projected spend is sitting.
Has Jackie received a copy of the new chart by email? Have you got? Thanks. Good. Great. Welcome, Sheree.
If it's okay, I'll work through my spiel, which might cover some of these questions, and then I'll address the two questions that have already been asked directly, and then open for further questions.
Can we start with your page number that your spiel starts on, please?
So in the agenda, the Treasury stuff starts on paragraph 28. Sorry, we don't get the same agendas as you guys, so we work to different page numbers.
17. Right, thank you. So page 16.
Thank you. So the Treasury section of the report contains all the usual Treasury information, which confirms that everything is within the limits of the Treasury policy. What is new is the chart showing the debt forecast for the year and how we're going to get there. This, as Catherine has said, it's still a work in progress, and I do welcome feedback on it. I'll also note that the waterfall chart that was in the report, it doesn't actually add across, which is something that I discovered in the early hours of a morning. So it's not my kids that keep me awake, it's this. So I've tabled an amended chart. None of the numbers have changed. All your anchor debt numbers are still the same. I've just stripped out those subtotals so that it actually makes sense, and it's actually simplified it a lot as well. So the forecast in this waterfall chart, it includes most of what Tracy and Susan have already talked about. There are some differences as some of the matters that go through OPEX and CAPEX, they're not necessarily cash, so they don't impact debt. For example, the vested assets reforecast in the OPEX, that wouldn't impact my debt projections. I also forecast debt based on what's flowing through the bank accounts rather than information coming out of the finance system. So the recognition of expenditure and revenue, it can differ due to the timing of cash flows, because I have to borrow based on how much money we've got in the bank as opposed to what people are accruing and when that is actually flowing. Another good example of this is a reserve funding matter that might not necessarily go through the P&L or balance sheet. That still has a cash impact for council, so I still need to make sure that I've got money in the bank to pay for that, regardless of the funding. So in this tabled item, you'll recognise the opening debt position from the annual report of 1.312 billion. Coincidentally, that's the same net debt position that we're at the 30th of September. It's a different 1.312. We've been building up some pre-funding for debt maturity that happened in October, and we have done some borrowing throughout the year as well. The debt forecast at the end of the 2026 financial year is currently 1.571 billion, so that's $77 or $78 million lower than the 2026 annual plan debt budget, which is another anchor debt number for you, which is the 1.648 billion right at the end of the chart. The chart shows a breakdown of how we got to that 1.312 at 30th of September and how I think things are going to flow based on information that I'm getting to get to that 1.571 billion. But at a really high level, it's really just banking that lower debt number at the beginning of the financial year, because we've got some, lower than budgeted capital forecast right now, with carry forwards and project deferrals netting off, and we've got lower than budgeted land sales as well, which I've assumed in there. So those are all at this point netting themselves off to just really be banking that opening debt balance. So like I said, I've put your key debt anchor points in that waterfall chart for you. Those won't change as we move throughout the year, but everything else within this chart will change as we borrow, spend money, what we hold in the bank account. So that's the waterfall chart. That's new, work in progress. Happy to receive feedback. I've also, in the report, I've included a chart that shows the on and off balance sheet debt. So it got really complicated, me trying to stack IFF on top of that waterfall chart. So I've pulled that out separately for now, and you'll be familiar with the on and off balance sheet debt chart from the annual report and previous Treasury reports. So that's showing the budgeted annual plan on and off balance sheet debt, which was 1.75 billion, and it's now forecast at 1.74 billion. So that's taking into account the $102 million of IFF drawdowns. I haven't assumed any change to that drawdown at this point. That will flow through from the capital team, but at the moment I'm still assuming full drawdown on that IFF work. That's the end of my spiel. I'll just address the Mayor's question about the 485 million borrowing in the report. So that 485 million, that's our borrowing resolution for the year. So that covers all of the borrowing that we need to do to fund the capital program and debt-funded OPEX. It also includes a $220 million debt maturity that will happen during the year. So we will borrow again to refinance that debt maturity.
Glenn? No, your mic's on, and it shouldn't be.
Is it? Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think, you know, again, if we could just have, you know, have that detail so we can actually, you know, because that 220 million, it doesn't quite equate, but it gets back to 265 rather than 259. So, like, it's again just being able to reconcile the numbers that we see here, because I assumed that was the case, but yeah, don't like to assume. Would like to just see the numbers there so I can understand where that is. Thank you.
And just feedback from me, I really like the chart. I think it's so, thank you. I probably would, for me, because we're breaking down our capital and revenue and OPEX into the first quarter and then the rest, it would probably be it would be useful for me to have a second chart right underneath that's just the full year all in one. So just to go from the first 1,322 to the last one, but not break it down for the first quarter, if that's possible, just because I think it's that clarity is very useful for me. So thank you for that. Any other questions of the finance team? Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I'll try and ask my question a bit better. So the annual plan had, well, I suppose to break it into two. First question is, does capital expenditure include operational expenditure of a capital nature on your chart? Sure.
Yes, it does, the
Yeah.
502.
No, sorry, on the debt chart.
It did in one iteration, but in this one I've stripped out the operational projects of a capital nature and treated them as OPEX in here, and that was just based on feedback that I got. Happy to go either way.
Yeah. So, okay, that gives me a baseline. So the LTP had a capex of, the annual plan had a capex of 415. Yeah, apologies. Yeah, LTP had 457. The annual plan had a capex of 425 plus 78 of a OPEX of a capital nature, for anyone who's wondering. So here we've got 415 on this debt chart. So that means 10 million down, but a few weeks ago we were 39. So I guess where I'm trying to go is the $39 million estimate. What has happened between that estimate and our $10 million estimate now? Is this just what sort of, is that a typical yo-yo kind of effect throughout the year that you might go up by 30 mil, down with, you know, or is there something particular that has changed significantly in this time? No, this is the whole year.
So the difference between the two that you're talking about is the forecast capital program versus the revised budget. So in my debt projections, I've banked a $10 million lower capital program, which is the net impact of the biggest movers in there being the carry forwards and the big project deferrals.
So which one? This one is the forecast, which is the one you're thinking is the most accurate, and the previous one was the revised, which was based on the carry forwards, but not based on some of the other stuff. Is that correct?
So Cherie's been using in the waterfall graph the revised budget, which is the proposed amendments, including all of those carry forwards, which is approximately $10 million less than what was approved in the annual plan budgets.
So
it's not
the
based on
where it
forecast.
says on the label it's forecast, is it not really the forecast one?
It's the debt forecast there. So I guess it's a labelling issue.
But not based on the capex forecast.
It's based on the approved, well, what they're asking you to approve, yeah.
Which is not what was in the annual plan, but what is revised, just to be very clear. So not what's in the LTP, not what's in the annual plan, but what we have or will, hopefully, from your point of view, approve, which means that, just to sort of cut to where I'm going with this, that it is still our best guess in the organisation that we will also be another 20 29 million below that at the moment. That's what the forecast is. So we've still got an extra 29 million to, I don't want to say this and conjure up anything, but just to sort of to play with in that budget. I know we're not sort of juggling things, but I just mean if we end up bringing anything else into our annual plan, we've probably, at the moment, we've still got 29 million potentially to fund that.
Based on the most recent forecast information from the business, it's closer to 38 million.
Yep.
But not all of that is necessarily debt funded.
Yep, sure. Yep. Okay, no, that's very helpful. And the other thing I just wanted to clarify, which sort of was mentioned earlier, was the carry forwards. I've just got to find the right page again. Apologies.
34 if it's OPEX or your CapEx.
Yeah. So that the housing equity reserve was that was 200 for this financial year that we're currently in, but then are we carrying forward the extra 200 in this, what you're seeking approval for here, to carry forward the other 200 to the next financial year? Is that correct?
Sorry, could you clarify which request row that is? So I can make sure I'm
So
listening.
that's on 41, number 7, agreed through deliberations to fund 400k to underspend to enable increased housing density. Now, I recall a transaction of 400,000 for Papakainga that we approved in the deliberations, and I don't know if that's what I'm just trying to figure out, is this the same amount of money, in which case half of it, I believe, was for the current financial year and half for the next financial year. But I notice you've also, the reason I'm sort of asking is I'm kind of thinking, well, is that true? Because there's also the other amount for Papakainga earlier on, which is a much bigger amount, like the 1.071 million, which was presumably another separate resolution.
Yes, so they are separate. On row 41, that is the specific resolution from deliberations. So that actually is already approved and probably shouldn't be on this list, to be honest. And that was two separate amounts of 200,000, but for two separate, no, not financial years, two separate initiatives. Yeah, I didn't want to specify what they were because I didn't know if that was in public yet.
So in the public minutes, it states 200,000 in 2025-26 funded from the unapplied allocation of elder housing proceeds, with a review, which is why I'm bringing it up, with a review before allocating a further 200,000 in 2026-2027, also funded from the elder housing sale proceeds. So we only approved 200,000 for this financial year. So I'm just trying to figure out what the best way to show that is, because it just seems to imply that we probably could have 400 to spend, but that's not what we approved.
So the 400,000 for this financial year is for two separate initiatives. One, I guess I'm going to repeat what Tracy just said about not being sure whether it's in the public forum or not, but one was a $200,000 essential carry forward for the accessible properties work that will be happening. And I just need to be really careful what I say here, but perhaps if we bring the detail back to you separately, but there were two separate reports brought to the deliberations of the annual plan asking to carry forward that 400k and split it. into the two separate initiatives. So my recollection is that there's two separate resolutions for that 400,000.
I've got some other queries just in terms of the carry forwards, and I would like a reconciliation of the end of year and accruals before I will be proceeding to vote positively on accepting these OPEX changes. So maybe that you're in that similar camp because we need a bit more information.
So another one, I'm just thinking we've got 116,000 there for a couple of things, including the city deal, and I'm sort of thinking, I don't remember resolving that, and I'm just sort of, I thought we talked to Marty that the default option was to not come back and ask for more OPEX. I thought that's my recollection. I'm not recalling the previous items, so therefore I'm doubting my recollection on everything now. But that's certainly, I can picture that conversation with Marty there, saying that was to be the default option, and then and in a way this is kind of a retrospective approach. I prefer a proactive approach before we pay the person to do stuff.
I agree, and that's a comment I'll make shortly, but not a question. Yes, please.
Just to be clear, this isn't requesting more budget. This budget already existed. It is more of a timing thing.
But we'll still have to borrow to pay for this in the current year, which means it'll impact rates.
We had planned to borrow in last year. That was in the budgets last year.
But when we looked at our actual, what our rates were going to go up by this year, we worked really, really hard to make sure we brought down everything we could, and having 3 million put in at this stage doesn't make me very comfortable.
Could I just jump in? So carry forwards of rate funded expenditure would have been, the rates would have been collected, so there would have been a technical surplus, and that would have been identified as committed. So if we had no surplus left, it's because we would have identified that spend has still to come. So you rated for it. Where it was rate funded, you would have rated for that expenditure last year, collected the money, and so that's held to do that work. But yes, the debt would be higher by that amount because that debt is an actual cash flow. But so it won't affect rates this year, it would affect debt.
But if I've got a higher debt, there's interest on that. It does affect rates. So I think there's a little bit more clarity we need on the 3 million request, but that's up to the council to decide. So no further questions. Thank you very much, team, for that. And again, thank you for continuing to try to get more transparent and more clarity on our numbers. We will continue to work together. I'll continue to harass you, I'm sorry, with questions, but thank you for your patience. So just in terms of that and good questions, if we move the motion, I'm not going to move C because I don't think we should be approving that. I think we should have a discussion on whether we should be approving B. Mayor Mahe, you had some comment on that which you got a response to. Do you have a view on whether we need to do that capital budget adjustment now versus combining that with the work we do, the forecast we get back in after the end of December?
I after the staff's response, I'm happy to include B, and that's just keeping that tension on people sticking to budgets, and if they're prepared to give some up, then we should take that.
So do we? No, not yet. So I'm happy to move A and B. I have a seconder. Thank you, Mayor Mahe. Open for discussion. Councillor Crowther.
I think the there's a difference between some of the items in the list of the carry forwards, and I think it'd be helpful to kind of separate it out into the particular years that the work is actually going to take place, because something like, I mean, I won't go into all the detail, but I think if you've already got certain things that were planned in a particular year and for good reasons they're sort of pushed forward, that's very different from, say, starting a new initiative and using funding from the previous year to fund it when in our deliberations we'd already had a discussion saying we didn't want to do that. So, you know, I think the two things are different, and we need to have a bit more detail so we can discern which things we're happy with to approve. So something like that housing equity reserve, you know, we've obviously approved that. Sounds like we've approved both parts of that, and I can't recall the second bit. And other things will make sense to do that. But when you're doing new initiatives, I thought the agreement was that would come from this year's financial budget, and we would have to juggle things within the OPEX to make sure we delivered it within this year's budget, not to rely on carry forwards to cover new initiatives that weren't even thought about at the 30th of June. Well, I certainly haven't been told about them.
Yes, I think you're right. My understanding is that we have approved operating costs for the approved 2025-26 annual plan, and if there are budgets are exceeded, then the organisation has been asked to find savings somewhere else. So 100% agree with that, and with Councillor Schuler, I think, who commented that we don't want to have these sort of coming in a different way, which is why I haven't suggested we have C, and we will, as an action, we will ask for more clarity on the year-end operating costs, including accruals, the final year operating costs, and therefore how these carry forwards occurred, and more clarity on those that have been resolved and those that are yet to be resolved. More clarity. Oh yeah, and more clarity on which have been resolved or which will be resolved and which are waiting to be resolved. So that being the end of the discussion, I'm going to move. We've got a Mayor Mahe, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just want to thank staff again for doing these reconciliations. I think what we're trying to do is simplify the numbers. We're trying to get consistency every time that we see a number. We've got those reconciliations, etc. So I thank staff for listening to feedback and bringing some of those tabled reports. We'd just like to see that, you know, going forward. I think there's, just on that last sort of action point, I agree with that. What I would like to see is the underspend in the annual report, because I haven't been able to see that in the detail that we need. If we're going to carry something forward, we clearly didn't spend it last year, so there should be a saving in last year's budgets if they are coming forward, and ultimately that should offset. And I think the key thing we've got to look at in these numbers is, when we say we're saving, we're actually seeing those savings, and that's from a transparency. We can't go and say, we've taken all this money out of budgets and then actually see budgets increase. So I think there's a very clear direction to staff that, if there is overspend somewhere, we need to find the savings elsewhere to make sure that the budgets do remain. The budget is our ceiling. It's not something that we're going to keep increasing, and we really got to get these costs under control and making sure that we are sticking to those budgets. So we need that financial rigour within the organisation, that they're really looking at every single expense and saying, okay, if we're going to bring that one in, what are we going to take out to make that balance? So that's what my direction is going forward. I'd like to see that change. So thanks.
There being no further discussion, we've got a motion on the table. I'll ask all those in favour to say aye. And against? I've got a yellow hand up on screen. We've got a carried motion, but would you like to make a comment? Sorry, Tangata Whenua Representative Jackie Rolleston-Steed, apologies. I have been looking and then I missed you.
And apologies, not so much slow to the party, but not too sure when the conversation needed to be socialised. And I guess that the conversation around the overspend actually came up at a previous meeting, particularly in conjunction with the allocation to Papakainga, which obviously, as you can see, is now accrued to just over $1 million underspend. I think if there's going to be a conversation around offsetting what that underspend looks like, we need to make sure that we consider what brought that allocation of funding to the table in the first place and why it has been underspent. So we know that Papakainga grant of approximately $260,000 per year has been accrued, was essentially ring-fenced from about 3 years ago, with the consideration that certain Papakainga haven't had an opportunity to access infrastructure, hence the reason why those individual grants that are supposed to offset some of the development contribution or capital contribution to hook onto non-existing infrastructure provide an opportunity for later. So what I hope would happen is if this ring-fenced pūtea is not going to be retained or it's going to be considered as a saving, can we have a conversation as to what will come next so that once there's an enablement for the Papakainga to be developed, that they can still access some of the grants? And the other reason why I mention that is because, again, going back a couple of meetings back with regard, and I know that our finance team were a little bit reluctant to talk about the 200K that kind of dropped out of the elder housing, is that there were other initiatives to enable the development of Papakainga using other mechanisms such as Araro Tangata, who put in a submission to apply for some of that grant, but weren't, well, they were not successful at achieving that. So it seems like previously, we've made resolutions around what is going to be earmarked, but there doesn't seem to be a bridge to enable that going forward, which is the infrastructure, which is around entities such as Araro Tangata to be able to support these initiatives. So apologies, it's just a really long-winded comment to make sure that if we are going to be dropping some of the underspend, what does that look like? How does it implicate housing, community housing and Papakainga development, and what might happen going forward? So I hope that was articulated in a way that we'll be able to retain that conversation going forward in conjunction with recommendation C.
Thank you for your comments, Jackie. I guess probably just a little bit of a miscommunication here. I think what we're saying is, we've got a $3 million underspend, and that includes the Papakainga. It's not saying that we want to not carry that forward. It's just saying if we're carrying that forward, there should be a surplus of $3 million in last year's accounts. So, it should be easily to reconcile that if we're going to carry it forward. But we actually had an overspend in last year's accounts, and that's in total, and that's despite, this saving. So, that's sort of the tension we need. So, if we're going to bring it into these accounts, it's not saying we're going to cut on these particular ones. It's just saying that, if we've got to see that relationship of how that $3 million was underspent last time, and then if it is new spending coming in, then we're going to have to find savings elsewhere. It's not necessarily savings in these areas, but
yeah, well explained.
Thank you for clarifying.
I guess just on that, is the action sufficient to cover that? And we'll make sure that on the action, we'll make sure we do specifically and because the Mayor is exactly right in terms of we were not saying drop that line, we're just saying we don't have enough information over the years of when that spend was approved and why it wasn't spent, as you've said, and there may be external reasons for that. Okay, so we did carry that motion. Sorry, we had a delay in that extra conversation. So thank you. So now we're on 9.8, first quarter 2025-26 capital program performance. And we have Alex Johnson joining us. Welcome. So we're on page 35. Thanks, Kev.
Morning, Madam Chair, elected members. I'm just stepping in for James Woodward. Couldn't be with us today, so I would like to just, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the quarter one performance for the capital program. The budget has been revised and is up to date in line with the financial report that you've just received. Out of the 250 active projects, we have around 112 that are actually going into practical completion this year. The variance for that financial year forecast is only $9 million, and that just gives us a bit of insight to saying there's a bit more surety around how we're tracking to those projects that are coming up for completion that are under implementation. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Alex? Councillor Rosenboom.
Welcome, thank you. Thank you to staff for the report. Just a quick comment on the completion of the Maryvale Community Centre. Thank you to all the staff that were involved in that. Much appreciated and valued, and I think the community is loving it. Second is Te Akura Drive. We've just finished lights installed, ready to the shopping centre. We've gone with a concrete approach. Are we happy with the construction process? And part B, the finish, or are we finished now?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll ask Mike Seaborn to come and talk to his projects. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. The project isn't finally complete. We've got a few elements to close out, but it is largely operational. In terms of the concrete surfacing, given it's weeks old, we're very happy with it. In terms of the milling that's going on at the moment is to try and reduce those bumps and things that are going on there at the moment. And we'll monitor the performance of that. So one of the elements of using concrete roads is that they can be a little bumpier than your traditional asphalt, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper in terms of doing that. If we wanted to smooth it out, and it was an option in the project, we would put asphalt over the top, but that would just have to be something we'd have to replace every 15 years for a slightly smoother surface. So there's a balance in terms of that whole of life cost. So at the moment, we'll be monitoring it, and we're pretty happy with the way the construction's gone. And at some point, I'd love to show you the video of the ground underneath that concrete and our testing as the thing sinks into the earth underneath. It's pretty soft under there, so the concrete is definitely the best option out there.
Yeah, having driven over that ground as a teenager, I know how soft it is. We know it's not completed, so how much more of the dividing line work, the finishing off the project is done, and is it going to be left till after Christmas to avoid the inconvenience in the public?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we'll be out and clear. It's part of the agreement with the crossing to be well clear of the place before Christmas, so Christmas shoppers can enjoy the crossing, and we'll have nothing there.
So just follow up on that. So as we, through that process, I think when we spoke about it and the tender was for the asphalt on top of the concrete. So Was that a significant saving by not doing that?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, in the vicinity of about $500,000, probably more actually. We'll give you some final numbers once we've done a full wash-up. And that is part of the variance that you see in the report that you've just been reading around actual savings and projects. This isn't contingency held back or delay, this is actual savings and reduction in cost.
Great to hear, thank you. Councillor Crowther.
First question is, the columns on page 69 with the, well, I've got the red status projects open, and it talks about total budget draft annual plan 26. Are they actually the annual plan numbers, and that it's just the heading hasn't been updated, or are the numbers not updated to what's in the final plan?
Through you, Madam Chair. Council, I believe those numbers were a mix of the LTP plus some budgeted numbers that hadn't been approved yet. So they are not exactly the same as the financial report, but they'll be very similar.
Because it sort of strikes me that, like, if I use an example of Cameron Road, that I don't know how helpful it is to sort of have the $315 million forecast number in there, and there's also now this uncertainty around the 173.5 for the draft budget. Then you've got the total EAC. What's that? What's EAC? Estimate at completion or whatever.
Early contract or something or other.
I think that's estimate at completion, is it? Of 321, which we're certainly hoping that's not true. So I imagine that's a mistake. So then we've sort of got this variance of $148 million. But to me, they're all sort of hypothetical numbers, and it'd be far better. We've now got to the point where we know far clearer numbers around that. Albeit I understand, that we've got uncertainty around the IAF funding, and then this is the case on a few of them. Like the text, the commentary doesn't seem to reflect the colours, because it's for that Cameron Road again, just using that example. It says the amber status reflects that confirmation of IAF funding is subject to ministerial decision expected this month. But all three, July, August, September, are red. So I guess, without going into other examples, that it'd be really helpful to go through, like probably present either in pieces of this and get it accurate, or ideally, if there's time for the staff to do it, to sort of go through and actually get the real colours matching with the real numbers with the real text, because I think then we'd sort of have a real life discussion on it, which I thought was the whole point of the City Delivery Committee, was to sort of get, this is the sort of up to date, where we're at, what the budget is. And you could put, if you've got room for more columns and you want to keep some of the stuff, that's fine. But I think the priority for me is what's in the best budget we've got now, which is, I thought, the annual plan budget, and then what we really think it's going to be to deliver that project, and compare those things and see how we're tracking.
Through you, Madam Chair, agree. We can definitely work on those numbers and bring back a different status report for the red statuses.
One more, which is, again, without going into separate projects, I just looked at some of the ones on page 300, sorry, not 300, what am I doing? It's page 71 of this one. And I looked at some Utamotai projects, seeing it's my neck of the woods, and I was kind of thinking, hold on a minute, these are sort of, again, apart from the numbers, there's also the issue of, like, we have a green, for first example, Levers Road project, a green for July, and then a couple of reds. But my understanding is that that whole project is long done and dusted, unless there's another project I don't know about. And I'm kind of wondering, is this more of an internal staff document that you need for a certain purpose as well? Because I think that would perhaps help to understand. But otherwise, it's probably better just to leave out all these projects which aren't current projects, as far as I know. But correct me if they are.
Through you, Madam Chair. Councillor, we do keep projects open after their practical completion for a while to maintain those defects. So we do keep sight of them, so they don't go straight to not being active. So we do keep some oversight. We have seen an uptake on red and particularly amber projects over the last few months. That's mainly because we've changed our key criteria around KPIs for those projects. So that may be taking effect too. I'll pass over to Mike.
Through you, Madam Chair, and just in regard to that project and some of the other transport projects in here, what you're seeing is we're doing a bit of housekeeping on projects in the past and here to bring it up into line, into consistency. So some of the projects you'll see there is they're in red because we're finally closing them out and we're doing a sort of wash up on some of those elements so that this reporting can remain consistent with all the rest of it. Generally, there's a comment in there to say that that's what we're doing, but quite often in our the RAG status change and the housekeeping we're doing will mean that there's going to be more red there. But as you track it through this committee, you'll see them start to change and then drop off and get closed out. So we're trying to give you the full picture of that full closeout, and then so you might see some anomalies and some weird things going on. And happy to take any questions about specific ones, and then get back to you on those as actions.
Well, I guess the specific sort of things then, it just seems like to, I suppose, become very unuseful from my point of view as a governance person. Like, it could be great for staff, but we've now got a whole page of red there, and I'm kind of thinking, Totara Street safety upgrade again, unless I'm mistaken, that was finished years ago. The Tilby to Hall Road one a year or so ago, the Girvan Road done. So you go through project by project and you sort of think, well, red jumps out at me as though, oh, we might have a bit of a problem. I think that's what the intention of traffic lights normally are, sort of stop, have a look. And I'm kind of getting to the end of that one page and I don't think there's anything there that's of any concern to us, hopefully. But please tell me if I've got it wrong. But if that is the case, then I don't think it's good to have red. There needs to be almost like another colour, which is, I know in the regional council transport committees, there's black, I think, and then there's blue, but you can pick a colour and maybe say these are the completed ones which are still causing staff some concerns in terms of internal process. But from our point of view, from the community point of view, they wouldn't know because it's all built, it's all completed, there's no roadworks taking place on them or anything. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just making sure.
Through you, Madam Chair. No, that's a good point. We'll take that on board. Thank you.
And you can just stay there, Mike, probably. Just on page 49, the page, what am I? 48, the table on the transport projects doesn't add the last column, should add up to about 20 million minus, not 0.7 minus. I think it's just, I do know it's this third to last column doesn't add up in total. That's just something to fix, please. And just on page 54, we've got a table there, and digital services does concern us, and it's quite hard. We've got all this detail, and then you've got other, or balance. So the total comes to 81 million, and balance is 77 million. So it just, to me, this is reporting that I'm not quite sure what we're meant to look at and what that table should be telling us, but there's 7 lines of detail and then one that just says balance on digital. So can that just be a action that we say what's in the balance, or
I want just as a suggestion for the action, perhaps a further breakdown of balance.
Yes, please. And my other one again, just for clarity, on the table on page 70, we have a, it's called Total Budget Bracket Draft AP, end of bracket. Is that the same as approved 2025-26 annual plan? Because we're just trying to get standardised reporting so we know exactly which numbers we're talking about.
Madam Chair, the numbers go back to my earlier comments to Councillor Crowther. They were slightly different from the adopted annual plan. They were at the time they were the annual plan LTP budget, but also with some variations that hadn't been quite approved yet. So they are slightly out from what the approved annual plan budget is.
So again, back to Mayor Mahe's comments earlier, we're just trying to always be able to know where the numbers come from, please. Any help on that would be appreciated. And the other thing on the reporting, I'm looking at page 82, that's still within this report? No, next report, sorry. Okay, that being the end of the questions, thank you, Alex. We have a recommendation to receive the first quarter 25-26 capital program performance. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Roseboom. I'll second that. Did you want to talk to it, Councillor Roseboom?
No, just to say that we do have a very large program currently underway, and the staff are performing a great job and constantly looking for savings, as we've just heard. Well done.
Any further comment? If that's the case, I will put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. And against? That is carried. Thank you. 9.9, major project update transport, page 81. And the supplementary. Welcome, Chris Barton.
Yeah, good morning everyone. I'll provide a brief introduction. So this report provides an update on infrastructure major projects, including Papamoa East Interchange, State Highway 29, Tariko West Enabling Works and 15th Ave to Welcome Bay. So construction at Papamoa East Interchange and Tariko is progressing really well. Upcoming key milestones include the connection of Kawerau Drive between the Tariko Business Estate and State Highway 29 to the new roundabout is scheduled to open in mid-November. And Papamoa East Interchange is currently on track to open in March 2026 as well. So we're getting some more clarity around those completion dates with the construction progressing well. Both of the projects are currently performing really well financially, with outturn cost forecast well within budget and some healthy contingencies there. 15th Ave has been working through and closing out the comprehensive procurement process with the early contractor involvement, design and construction partners, as has been discussed previously, with the next phase of design development now due to progress from this month. So further to that, I'll propose to take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
My first one again, just in terms of trying to understand the numbers. On your cost, you refer to an LTP budget on each of those projects. We just need to know where that comes from, because I understand LTPs do get adjusted over future years for inflation and other subsidies and things. So it would always be useful, certainly for me, to if you're going to put that number 79.3, for example, in the Papamoa East Interchange, it would be useful to have a little table that says this is the approved this year, and then the whatever those LTPs are, please.
Yep, we can certainly action that, and just for confidence, these do reflect the current annual plan budgets, but because of the multi-year nature of the projects, obviously there's actuals from multiple years and
but
moving
it's
forward.
much better that we can see the annual plan that's in there, that we know we get used to those numbers.
Can do, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for staff? Councillor Roseboom.
Just one on the Haureni Bridge. Has the report come in? Have I missed it? Have we had a sustain a thorough report back on the current state of the Hauruni Bridge?
No, so that's the next stage of works with the design and construction partner. So we really wanted the delivery team to own and deliver that report. And so now that we've got them on board, that's the first key stage of work. So that'll be coming through over the next few months.
Yes.
Yeah, really looking forward to the opening of the roundabout at Kawerau Drive. Do we have any understanding of the impact of the traffic on Metakorkiri Drive, given the Green Gorillas just moved in there, and that has a massive in and out daily transport impact on that road? And what are we going to do about the potential for rat runners?
Yeah, so we've done a high-level assessment around that. A key action for us is particularly monitoring it. So obviously it's always been intended that these network connections would be in place, and they've been designed for obviously that loop network to be in place through the business estate. We'll be taking an active monitoring approach. We anticipate there will be some form of rat running. We're really particularly interested in making sure particularly heavy vehicles don't look to divert through that area. But yeah, it's a monitoring and a reactive type approach. We're hopeful that it self-moderates itself, and obviously the business estate itself and the roads through that area are fit for purpose to take some increased volumes than what are currently on there. So we'll be monitoring and managing that.
Councillor Correct.
Thank you, Chris. Just on that, what are some potential remedies if it's identified that there is quite serious rat running?
So obviously the small-scale interventions come around signage, particularly trying to deter that through traffic through some of those components. Obviously, the next level is actually getting into physical traffic calming to defer some of those through movements, whether that's from a temporary perspective until the new road's in place, particularly during the construction of while State Highway 29 is busy, through to, yeah, so that there's layers of potential interventions depending on the scale of the potential issue. But as we say, we're hopeful that it self-moderates, and yeah, like we say, the corridors have been set up for as collectors and for yeah, so should be able to cater for some of those through movements that we're expecting.
Emma Hay.
I guess my comment, I can't see why there's going to be that much of a problem through there, purely from a fact is I don't think it's going to be any quicker than going the other way. But just a couple of questions. So the Papamoa East interchange, we talk around the issue around basic asphalt not being available. What's the constraint in the system there?
So the major constraint is so currently there's one main plant that services the area at Mount Maunganui, and that's been constrained through resource consent limits over a period of time, particularly through the current calendar year. They've got a cap on their supply capability with a regional council consent in terms of some of the particularly some of the challenges with air pollution and other components around asphalt supply. They are currently working through a process of upgrading their plant, and also there's another plant coming online in Tauriko. So those will start to address some of those strategic supply issues moving forward. In the short term, obviously there's a high demand across the region, across various projects, and Papamoa East Interchange has just been struggling to secure the supply under the limited cap that the asphalt plant has. It's something we're continuing to work through. If there's an opportunity there that the plant can supply, we'll be keen to try and take advantage of that. But it's something that the plant hasn't been able to confirm at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Just secondly, on the 15th turret, where are we at time-wise? Just an update on when we're going to know the outcome of this bridge, whether that's changed at all?
Yeah, so obviously we've been working through the procurement process, and the bridge decision in terms of an update in that report will likely be around the end of Q1 next year, probably March, April is when we're expecting that report and decision effectively, alongside obviously some of the other design development next year. From an overall perspective, one of our key drivers on that project is to try and get into construction in 2027, and particularly look to secure NZTA implementation co-funding approval in this NLTP cycle is our current target. So that's something we're really focused on from a project perspective now that we've got the team on board to get the design developed to that point to meet those timeframes.
Councillor Taylor. Mahe.
So just following on from the Mayor's comments about the bridge. So under the contract we've awarded to the successful person or organisation, what happens if we get to the bridge and the result's not good? Like, are they working on a whole lot of other stuff, or is that sort of an off-ramp on the whole project? What happens there?
Yeah, so we've designed the contract as effectively a go no-go point. So if there's a lack of viability around that bridge decision, then it becomes we'll go back. We'll bring that decision back to council in terms of what the options are. But there will be an option at that point for us to effectively halt the project and withdraw from that contract.
So there's nothing much going on other than that till that point. So we're not sort of potentially wasting resource? Yeah,
correct. So we've also framed that up to obviously, focus on that bridge component as the first gateway. There's a few minor components around some service investigations, etc., to enable for the design, but we won't be diving into a lot of the other material cost components of design until we've got surety around the bridge component.
Councillor Crowther.
Back in the previous item, we saw that the forecast now for CapEx for connecting Mount Maunganui project has gone up to best part of $1 million higher. I'm just trying to understand, does that mean there's something has happened to the OPEX? Because with the IFF funding, there was going to be a component that had to be CapEx, a component that was OPEX, and then we'd get some operating revenue from the IFF. So can you just maybe outline connecting Mount Maunganui business case? Like, what is the situation there in terms of money?
I'm not 100% clear on what you're referring to from the previous report, but what I can say is nothing has changed from the decisions that were made around the commitment around the capital funding that was made at the time of debating the annual plan and the commitment to deliver that business case. So the cost forecasts are still in accordance with what was agreed within the previous report and specific project resolution.
So the annual plan was 2.365 million. The revised budget was 2.365, and now it's 3.211 in the forecast. But is that that's based on some financial analysis as opposed to real life, what it's going to cost you or something?
I can tell you that the costs are still consistent with the original annual plan estimate, and so I need to go back and check on what those changes
I would be very reassured if I could get an email, or we could get an email sort of just confirming that the number really is the 2.365, because obviously this has quite a big impact because there's no NZTA funding, there is IFF, and there is the fact that it's OPEX and CapEx as well, so yeah.
Yep, we can take that action, and I'll work with the finance team to coordinate that response. Thank you.
That being the end of the questions, thank you very much. Chris, can I have a mover? We've got a mover of the resolution. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Roseboom. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, just briefly, I think things seem to be progressing well. PEI has been a real success story. I think if we look at that, we've opened it early. It's going to finish on time, and we'll get a bit of our money back. So, yeah, good report, and good to see these things opening up.
Thank you.
I'll just give a cheeky comment to potential solving our rat run issue in the Terraco Business Estate. Maybe we should hurry up and move forward the connection to State Highway 36 and maybe finish Tarakura Drive to Gargan Road. Would definitely help alleviate traffic issues in the business estate.
No other comments, thank you. We've got a motion on the table. All of those in favour? And against? That is carried, thank you. We're now going to go to the original agenda, 9.1, the Annual Resident Survey 2025-26, Wave 1 results, and the 24-25 benchmarking report. We've got Josh Logan and, Josh Logan presenting.
Good morning.
I think we take it as read, Josh.
Yep.
Unless there's anything extra you would like to add.
No.
Any questions for Josh on the survey results? I like the amount of green in it. Any questions? No. Okay. Well done. So we have got a recommendation that the City Delivery Committee receives the report, Annual Resident Survey 25-26, Wave 1 results, and 24-25 benchmarking report. I'll have a mover. We've got a mover, thank you, Councillor Morris, and seconded by Councillor Schuler. Any discussion? Sorry, the mover would like to discuss.
Kia ora. Yeah, it's positive, which is good to see. And I think if we take on board the feedback from our residents just around some of those cost of living pressures and perception of financial performance of council, I think we'd do well. Also taking on board the feedback around greater community engagement and having two-way conversations with the community. So we keep that up, and I think we can only progress further. Certainly turn the corner from the Commission, and let's keep it going. I would just make the observation briefly about this, and as it relates to the financials earlier on. Within that, you could see there was an $18 million reduction in consultancy spend this year. There are reasons for that which were outlined, which one can't take full credit for, but there are some good outcomes from the conversations that have been had around this table. And I think that if we are to continue to see that improvement in perception, I think we've got to somehow translate the good conversations that are happening around this table around value for money and get that out to our community. Because there's been no communication about the reduced consultancy spend with our community. They want to see it, they expect it, we need to communicate it. There's been little communication around onboarding city ops and the commensurate reduction in contractor spend in places and spaces. So certainly while I've been around the council table, there's probably more shrinking violets around this table than what there have been around others, and that's good. That's a good thing. But we need to communicate, because when our community is saying to us they want to see value for money, and when I look at the work and the, pardon the vernacular, the thrashing poor council officers are getting from councillors and the mayor and the deputy mayor on our performance, that's not translated out into the community in terms of our communication, so we need to work on that.
Shall we make that an action?
I think one of the actions should be I should be able to distill what I say into two sentences or less.
I will take that as an action,
that would
absolutely.
be a good action. But I think Well, no, I think it's an ongoing action. It's just around how we communicate.
But we still could, just in terms of the two comments you made on
consultants.
The consultants and the city ops, it would be sensible to be, Me Mahe.
Yeah, I concur with some of those comments. I think the key thing for me is, look, this is quite a significant improvement, and we have to take that along with the feedback and say that's great. We have to put that also into perspective. There's 154 responses in this wave, so I'm not going to hang my hat and say we've turned a corner until we see that that trend hopefully continue. I guess when you look at the services, in most of those cases we are above average, but we've set some pretty lofty goals about being the best city in New Zealand, and that means that we need to be up there pushing the max results, and we're not there yet. I note that while we have had in the overall kind of measures and around the council, we have had some reasonable improvements in that aspect, but in most cases we are at or below average. So there's a big opportunity, as Councillor Morris has stated, use the feedback as a gift, and look into some of the sort of discussion that has been had and some of the comments. I think there's a pretty good guide there as to where we need to focus our attention and make sure that we continue to improve. And if we do listen and we do communicate well, I'm confident that we will see these continue to improve, but that's got to be at the forefront of what we're doing as a council, is taking this feedback and finding ways to get better. So that is the challenge, I guess, for all of us around this table.
Thanks, Me Mahe. Sorry, Councillor Schul, I should have let you speak as seconder.
No, they've made it easy for me, those two. Great words. I mean, I suppose, reflection, this, when we did our first annual resident survey, I think it created a huge amount of discussion around the table. So the fact that there isn't as much now might be a good example that we are more comfortable in these shoes and that we feel like we are operating well. But do agree with both the Mayor and Councillor Morris that one is we do need to communicate what us as elected members and what the council are doing well. We have to be our own best fans, and we also have to be our own best critics. There are areas that we already are the best in the country, which will make the Mayor happy, but there are a few graphs where the blue dot's at the bottom. So it's always going to be a work in progress, but communicating to the community well about what we're doing and continuing to have faith in the way we're operating, I think will be a big measure.
Councillor Crowther.
Yep, I'll echo the comments that the others have made. I think it'll be interesting to see the trend over this year. I'd like to look at on page 25 where we are compared, as we've agreed, to benchmark ourselves against previous elected councils. So there's an awful lot of red there, but of course it is looking a bit better. So I'm hopeful. Probably I do want to repeat what I've probably said once or twice before around our strengths and weaknesses, and I think the strengths are around the core service delivery, the core infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. The waste team, a big shout out to them. They've aced it again. Although I've got to say a number of that waste team are no longer here working for us actually, but that's a standout, I think, in Tauranga. And compared to, if you wind the clock back, certainly a decade ago, we were in a very, very bad way with waste, and I think we are now looking really strong in that area, and obviously making some big decisions soon on infrastructure. The two weak spots, I think, still are just the same old thing. The reputation of the council, which is a cumulative kind of thing, but the big standout again is engagement and consultation, and that, to me, it's always consistently low compared to the average, nowhere near the best in New Zealand. I think we have to really focus on engagement and consultation if we want to lift up the overall reputation of council, because those two tend to go hand in hand.
Councillor Taylor.
Yep, generally a good movement in the positive direction. I do question, along with the Mayor, 150 people shouldn't get too carried away. Specifically, when I'm looking at the new questions we've added to our survey over the last 12 months, Councillor Kurak's questions regarding affordability and perception of rate value, those numbers have jumped up quite a lot, and I can't understand how that would have happened. So I think we just need to be a little bit sceptical about some of the numbers, and that one, for me, given the current economy and the feedback we get on our spending, certainly is questionable, I'd say.
Councillor Morris.
Wrote
You
a
already
reply.
spoken.
Yeah, if we're finished, yeah. Wrote a reply. Councillor Schuler wants me to be succinct. I'd just also make the observation around Councillor Taylor's point, cost of living. The plateauing of rents has obviously been picked up in this survey, where people are talking about the cost of living element. So that's important. The last thing I'd say, just in regard to the actions as well, is last week we had our Chief Executive communicating at a public meeting about the organisational reset. And that's incredibly challenging for the leader of an organisation to communicate that topic in public while maintaining morale within an organisation. So I thought that presentation was excellent, very challenging for a chief executive to raise that. But I think in terms of actions, that we need to communicate the reset well. I don't think that we've communicated it sufficiently. I think that our shareholders, our community, our ratepayers, our residents would be interested to see that, because it is in direct response to the feedback that they've been giving us, not just through the survey, but individually and collectively as we've been out there. So, old saying in real estate, you can't sell a secret. If we're responding to community feedback, but we're not telling them about it, then we've got work to do. So I think I'd really value us doing some more work around that.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. So we've got a motion on the table to receive the annual resident survey, Wave 1 results and benchmarking report. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you. And we're now at 11:28. We will take a 15-minute break and be here before 11:45. Thank you, to do the City Centre Development Incentive Fund Annual Report 24-25.